is to know God with certainty. So get that knowledge. Okay, so this is really important. Islam is a religion of obligations. All prophetic religion are religions of obligations. Things you have to do and things you are not allowed to do. God commands. Okay, as Lord, He commands you to do certain things and He commands you not to do other things. This is the primary function of His Lordship, that I command, and also He guides us to develop what we need so we can fulfill the commands and we can obey the prohibitions. Okay, so there are many obligations in Islam, right? You have to make wudu. But before you make wudu, you have to know about the laws of water. Can you use rose water, for example, to make wudu? Can you use salt water to make wudu? Okay, so you have to know the answers to those questions. And then you have to know how to pray, and you have to know how to fast, and you have to know how to pay zakat, and you have to know how to make umrah and hajj, and you have to know about oaths, and you have to know about vows, and you have to know about buying and selling, how to earn money that is clean and beneficial, what to eat, what not to eat, what is clean, what is unclean, right? Like a rotten egg, for example, is it clean or unclean? Unclean. Okay, so we have to know these things. Many obligations, but the first obligation of them all is to know usul ad-deen, to know the foundational principles of the religion, to know foundational theology about God, the prophets, and reality. Okay, and if we look at our community today, we see that often we never study this. In fact, we encounter a lot of Muslims who feel that it's not necessary. I know that God exists. I know that He's one. That's all I need. And our tradition, based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is very clear that that is not enough. That is a very precarious path. You have got to have sound, basic, discursive knowledge about God and the prophets and about reality and the unseen. Discursive means knowledge that you can talk about with others. Knowledge that you can defend, knowledge that you can make sense of to yourself, because it may be that you have doubts, and there's nothing wrong with having doubts, but you cannot live with the doubt. You've got to be able to find an answer for it. So the first of all obligations then is this poem. And that's the reason why we want to study it. And even though we have 3 or 4 people here who've been through it before, it's a good thing to repeat, just to make sure that it's fresh in your mind. And one of the things about the theology is that you've got to understand in your heart how it works. Okay? You've got to be able to explain that in a way that is satisfactory for you. Okay, you can't just accept that because, well, my teacher told me. No, you have to understand how it works. Okay, so the first and foremost of all obligations is to get basic theological knowledge. أول واجب على المكلف. So once you become a mukallaf, you are biologically of age, you have a sound mind, and you have received and accepted the prophetic message. The first obligation is to learn about God, the prophets, and the unseen. Okay, and again, one of the problems of our communities today is that we neglect this, and because we neglect this, all sorts of illusions happen to us and delusions in our community. And then also we don't really understand the way that reality works. And then we say ma'rifatullahi, so the first obligation is the knowledge of God. What do we mean by that? Well, we mean by that the knowledge of God's foundational attributes. And you'll see, if you haven't seen before, that our scholars will designate 13 attributes. There are 13 attributes that you must know. Does God have only 13 attributes? No. God has infinite attributes. But in studying the Quran and the Sunnah, the scholars of theology have designated 13 attributes as the absolute core. That if you understand these 13, you have a sound understanding of God. Okay, and you can proceed. And your knowledge will grow and grow and grow. But if you do not know these 13, if you don't know all of them, then there is a big flaw in your knowledge of God. Okay, so they will then designate 13 attributes. And these are 13 types of, these are 3 types of attributes. Okay, the first attribute, let's just give them to you now, we'll go through them real quickly, is existence. And we call that necessary existence, as opposed to possible existence. But let's talk about that later. Okay, and that attribute is the most basic of all. And it is called the ontological attribute. Ontological means the attribute that deals with the nature of being. Okay, ontological. And we call it also the self attribute. The self attribute, because existence, necessary existence, perfect existence, absolute existence, this is the crown of all the divine attributes. And it tells us implicitly everything about the self, everything about the essence of God. Okay, if we understand what it means, basically we don't have to talk about much else. Okay, so existence is the first attribute, and it comes by itself. It stands by itself. Then we have, after that, 5 negative attributes. Why are they called negative? Does anybody know? Can we speak about God as having negative attributes? Well, yes. Sorry? Right, so these are called negative because they negate illusions pertaining to God. They are negative in that they negate things about God that are not valid. They're negations. They're put in affirmative language. He is this, that, and the other, but their meaning is really the negation of their contraries. So the 5 negative attributes are: 1, pre-existence. Pre-existence. What does the word pre-existence use? It's a good English word, but we don't use words like that very much anymore because we don't talk about God and we don't think about God. And we don't talk about temporality and we don't think about those things. We live a very mundane existence.